The President of the United States of America has attacked Charlamagne Tha God of the Breakfast Club, of all people. You know I had to have something to say about that, right? Stephen A. Smith Show in the house while I'm still on vacation. Holla. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the special edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every chance I get over the digital airwaves of YouTube. I love my audience. I love the support that you continue to give me. I love it when you show that you miss me, and I love being here for you. So I had to come back off vacation and get right into it because I heard that the president clapped at Charlamagne Tha God, buddy of mine, co-host of The Breakfast Club, the popular show, The Breakfast Club, over the weekend because of things that Charlamagne Tha God said when appearing on Trump's daughter-in-law's show, Lara Trump. My View is the title of the show. Actually, they've asked me to be a guest on that show. I am going to honor that request, Lara Trump. I know I've been running around with so much to do, so busy, but I'm definitely going to honor that request and show up on that show. But that's neither here nor there at this particular moment in time. President Trump responded to Charlamagne Tha God, calling him, quote, a sleazebag, after the radio host suggested that traditional Republicans will use rivaled interest in the Jeffrey Epstein files to take over the GOP again. For those of you who don't know much about Charlamagne Tha God, his real name is Leonard McKelvey. He's co-host of the popular radio show The Breakfast Club, which draws more than 4 million weekly listeners. Obviously, he was on the show. And he said to Lara Trump, I think that traditional conservatives are going to take the Republican Party back. He said to the president's daughter-in-law on her Fox News show, My View with Lara Trump. He said, I think this Epstein thing is going to be a way for traditional conservatives to take their party back. I really do. He said, I think they know this is the issue that has gotten the base riled up, referencing the disgraced financier who died by suicide in August of 2019. The MAGA base isn't letting this issue go. And for the first time, they know they can probably take the party back and not piss off the MAGA base, end quote. That was what Charlamagne had to say. After the interview, in a Truth Social post, Trump praised his daughter-in-law, calling her amazing and talented, and called the show a big rating success. And then he got to Charlamagne Tha God, and an entirely different tone took place. Let me read this quote for you that you can see right here up on the full screen. The very wonderful and talented Lara Trump, whose show is a big rating success, put racist sleazebag Charlamagne Tha God, parentheses, why is he allowed to use the word God when describing himself, question mark. Can anyone imagine the uproar there would be if I used that nickname, parentheses, question mark. He's a low IQ individual, has no idea what words are coming out of his mouth, and knows nothing about me or what I have done, like just ending 5 wars, including a 31-year bloodbath between Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, where 7 million people have died, and there was no end in sight. He didn't know that, or India and Pakistan, or wiping out Iran's nuclear capabilities, or closing the horrendous open border, or creating the greatest economy where prices and inflation have come way down, and where stupid and corrupt Joe Biden set the record for doing the worst job as president ever. But this dope, Charlamagne, would vote for Sleepy Joe or Kamala. Remember, 1 year ago, our country was dead. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. MAGA. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Courtesy of President Donald Trump via his Truth Social quote. Bit sensitive there, Mr. President. Why so sensitive? For what? And if you're going to have a problem with what Charlamagne said, shouldn't it be a problem with your base? It's not Charlamagne that's out there going off over the Jeffrey Epstein files. That would be Steve Bannon. That would be Tucker Carlson. That would be Candace Owens and various others, including some members of the GOP, I believe, including Lindsey Graham. And the guy Tillis, Senator Tillis, if I remember correctly, along with various others. You've had Republicans out there on Capitol Hill, votes that you need, In order, you needed them in order to get the big, beautiful bill passed. You'll need them for future legislation you're willing to push forward on the American people. The GOP is the one. Some members of the GOP are the ones speaking against you. And I don't think it's far-fetched what Charlamagne Tha God was saying at all. I don't think it will work. I disagree with him that it will work. But I think he's right on the money about what their intentions are. You yourself notice, Mr. President, they only cater to you because they have no choice. They didn't want you in office in 2020. They were ready to turn against you then. They wanted to reclaim power. We know how you feel about Mitch McConnell. While he's on his way out of office, why you feel that way? Because you thought he wasn't the biggest supporter of you? Now, back in 2016, remember little Marco, little hands? Marco Rubio, that's how you disrespected him. Remember how you talked about Ted Cruz's wife? Remember how insulting and denigrating you were to other Republican candidates? Now, it's politics, so bygones are bygones are bygones. So I'm not bringing that up to engage in revisionist history. I'm simply saying anything goes in politics. And the flip side to it is that, hey, because it's you, and you have owned the base since 2015, they have no choice but to acquiesce to your wishes and your demands because they don't want to leave office. But the second you turn your back, the second you show a shred, a sliver of vulnerability, you know, Mr. President, they will backstab you. They will do everything they can to undermine your power. So rather than going at Charlamagne Tha God, why don't you go at them? Why couldn't you say something like, I wish they'd try. It would be a huge mistake. How you think Grassley's feeling about you right now when you called him out the other day? And he talked about being personally insulted with the personal attacks that you've aimed in this direction. That's a Republican. Some of them don't like you. Some of them cater to you because it's politically expedient to do so. You know that. So why go at Charlamagne Tha God? Hit a nerve? Tell the truth? I think he's telling the truth about what the intent is. I just don't think it'll work. I don't think you, Mr. President Donald Trump, has anything to worry about when it comes to the GOP. They will bow to your whim in a heartbeat. Because you'll call them out, you'll embarrass them, and you'll get them out of office. And they know it, and they're scared to death of you. Just like you like it. I don't think you have anything to worry about. I think Charlamagne Tha God is wrong on that part. But I do think he's right about what their intent would be and what their wishes are, which means I think the attack on him was completely unnecessary and uncalled for. He's not low IQ, highly successful radio host, successful podcast, successful Black Effect Network. He has the pulse of the people. And a lot of people may disagree with him, but they can't avoid what he's saying because he's unapologetic about where he stands and how he feels. Some would say, you're that way, sir. So maybe you need to rethink what you said. Not that you will, because we know you double down instead of retract. We know this. But let's go to your daughter-in-law, Lara Trump. Did you see how amazing you said she was? Did you see how friendly she was with Charlamagne? Did you see how she articulated that she had been a guest on his show? Did you see the very respectful conversation, the back and forth that they had with one another? Did you see how she invited him back? What you tripping for? If he said something that was outlandish and egregious, don't you think your daughter-in-law, who's a pretty astute woman, by the way, I like her show. I've been impressed by what I've seen her do. And I'm going to go on the show soon. I really will, because I've been asked to. But she's been very impressive. She didn't have a problem with what he said because she knew he was talking about them, not you. A little bit sensitive there, Mr. President. I wonder why. Epstein file, that's what it got you. Got you that fidgety? If so, why? I'm just asking. I'm just asking. It was rhetorical. And I'll leave it at that. Because I got the man on right now himself. The guy you were talking about. the guy you called the sleaze bag with a low IQ. Anybody that knows him wouldn't accuse him of some low IQ. Yeah, some people might call him that sleaze bag stuff. You know, Charlemagne don't play, so he gonna say what he gonna say, and some people might feel that way about him. But ain't nobody gonna question the brother's IQ now. That ain't gonna happen. Well, you heard what I had to say about it, but who better to talk to than my next guest, the man that was verbally attacked by the president of the United States, Donald Trump, the one and only Charlamagne Tha God, co-host of the popular show, The Breakfast Club. Listen, it doesn't get much bigger than them. Over 1 billion views thus far this year alone. Just continuing to do their thing. Author of a couple of books. We'll get into all of that as well. Charlamagne Tha God is right here with yours truly. What's going on, big time? How are you, man? How's everything?
Stephen A. Smith, what's happening, my brother? How are you?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Just struggling with a little laryngitis, but I'm getting better, so I'll be good. Let's get right to it, man. I just want to let you know that in case my voice sounded a little bit raspier than usual. You heard what the president had to say about you. I'm going to read this right here. When you were on Lara Trump's show, all right, My View, just a few days ago, and you alluded to the conservatives within the GOP having an opportunity to take advantage of this whole Trump association with Jeffrey Epstein, somebody he knew for about 15 years or so. Obviously, the president took umbrage to that, and one of the things he said was about you. First of all, he called you a sleaze bag and discounted your intelligence. And secondly, he says he's a low IQ individual, has no idea what words are coming out of his mouth, and knows nothing about me or what I have done. Just ending 5 wars, including a 31-year bloodbath between Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, where 7 million people have died, and there was no end in sight. That's just some of the things that he said. Your response to the President of the United States, my man?
I mean, that's his opinion. You know, I'm a person that still believes in the First Amendment. So, you know, we all have, freedom of speech. We all have the right to reserve our opinions about people, to express our opinions about people. And I'm never going to be a person that steps on somebody's First Amendment rights. Unlike the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, who seems, to be implementing this authoritarian strategy and is using that to silence any voices who speak out against anything that he does. When I was on Lara Trump's show, and I don't know if you saw the conversation, Stephen A., I thought I was pretty fair, like I usually am.
I really did. I thought you were very fair. I thought you were very even-handed. You even reminded me of the importance of maybe I should stop calling myself an independent because we live in a binary two-party system where,
right.
You say, I saw what you were saying, and obviously it made all the sense in the world, so I wanted to give you credit for that. But what is it that you think that riled him up most? Because he knows what he's done. He sued ABC, he sued CBS, obviously NBC, Stephen Colbert. He's taking credit for getting him, getting his show canceled this coming May. Everywhere you turn, there's something with him and the media. So that's speaking to what you're alluding to in regards to First Amendment rights. But is it that you think riled him up? Or was it the fact that you said that conservatives are positioning themselves to sort of dilute his voice a little bit to some degree and gain some extra power?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of those things. Me pointing to the fact that he's the one who said on the very first day, I'm going to bring inflation down. On the very first day, I'm going to bring, grocery prices down. And we know prices aren't down and inflation isn't dead. We just saw the job numbers come out last Friday it was, and unemployment is up. Then he fired the labor statistic chief, who put those numbers out. And also, let's just forget the stats for a second, right? I was in Maryland earlier this year for my daughter's cheerleading competition, right? And people were coming up to me, talking to me, telling me how they're losing their jobs, because of what Doge was doing. And I'm an ambassador also for the food bank in New York City. I see firsthand how federal funding, being cut for programs like that impact people. So you can't just, throw a bunch of stats out there and tell people things are all good, when they aren't. And that's actually kind of crazy coming from President Trump, because that's the same mentality that hurt Democrats when they was talking about Bidenomics and telling people stock prices are up and GDP is up, but people in the streets are still hurting. You can't keep peeing on people's head and telling them that it's raining. And I mean, that's what's happening right now, from the economy to Epstein.
Well, listen, economy, like you pointed out, they was projecting 113,000 jobs in July, and it turned out to be only about 73 to 75,000. So they came up short, and he fires the commissioner for labor statistics. So you were talking about that. Obviously, we hear about the tariff wars, and we're hearing that there's $10 trillion in pledges. You and I are from the same kind of hood, my brother. I guess for me, what resonates with me is that's a pledge. That ain't a guarantee. That could be reneged upon at any particular moment in time. I understand that if it comes to fruition, it will definitely stir the economy in a positive direction. But until it definitively happens, I'm not caught up in promises of manufacturing jobs and semiconductor jobs, and I'm not caught up in all of that. I got to see it actually happen. I'll give him credit for the border because I think it needed to be closed because Biden had it wide open. I don't like the way he's going about it, but I only say that to say if there's a person, in spite of all the criticism that you may throw in his direction, that would speak favorably about something that he's done, if you believe there is something favorable that he has done, somebody that would say it is you. So as we sit here today, having said what he said about you, is there anything positive that you can point to about the Trump administration in your eyes at this particular moment in time?
I mean, we talked about it on Laura's show. Laura brought up, the border. I am a stern believer in border security. I just don't like the way that he's going about doing it because he told us that he was keeping the murderers and the rapists, and the illegal immigrants out of our country. Nobody in America should have a problem with that. But when you see, people who are actually, going through the process of trying to be in this country legally, being detained, and being deported and sent back to countries that they've never even been to, like that doesn't even make any sense. Like, going to the Home Depot to snatch up people who are, just out there looking to, make a honest day's living, that doesn't make any sense. And I don't think it's anything wrong with calling that out. And, I think to go back to the other question you asked me too, the theory I had, about this political coup that could be going on in the Republican Party. You're familiar, Stephen A., with the rumors that J.D. Vance went to meet with Rupert Murdoch in Montana. That was the same week Trump's letter to Epstein was published by Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal. And then Trump sued Rupert Murdoch. And then, there was another week where Mike Johnson shut the House down to avoid a vote on releasing the Epstein
Went
files.
out early release for vacation.
The Wall Street Journal came out that week and said, Trump knew he was in the Epstein files since May. And I just look at how the MAGA base has responded to the Epstein issue. It just feels like traditional conservatives who lost the party to Trump could use this opportunity to get it back because the MAGA base wouldn't be upset at all if they decided to impeach Trump and vote to remove him because he's in the Epstein files. And
Well,
I think being that I said that along with the economy, and I said it on Laura Trump's show, his daughter-in-law on Fox News, I think that's what caused that response yesterday.
So are you anticipating that he's going to come after you the way that he's coming after everybody else in the media? Not everybody else, but a lot of people in the media. Are you expecting something of that magnitude? And
he already did. It's funny, right? Because like today, my phone, of course, is blowing up, and it's everybody from elected officials, just to the homies, right? Are other people in the media space, and they all have like the same sentiment, and the sentiment is, hey man, be careful, be safe, make sure your security's on point. Those MAGA folks are crazy, and it just made me think to myself, damn, we're at that point in our society where you can't even criticize, your president without people thinking that your safety is in danger. If that's not authoritarian strategy, I don't know what is. So, just the fact that people were calling my phone saying that today, it says a lot about where we are, as a society. So I don't know what's going to happen.
It says a lot about where we are as a society. We are disintegrating before our very eyes as far as I'm concerned. But what does it say to you about you? Do you feel you need to watch your back? Are you concerned?
I always got my head on a swivel, Stephen A. I didn't got punched in the street a couple of times throughout my career, so I always got my head on a swivel. So if you ask me, do I feel like I need to watch my back? I'm not going to watch my back any more than I currently already do.
Let me transition to the MAGA base because that's where you and I part ways. I think we disagree here. I don't think the Republican Party, the GOP, is capable of dissipating Trump's voice in any way. I don't think they're capable of doing it. And I'll tell you why. Partially because of the Democrats. Because, again, let's look at Mamdani in in New York City. Democratic nominee just beat Cuomo in the primaries. Is favored to beat Cuomo and Eric Adams, who are both running as independents in the New York City mayoral race. You see the Gavin Newsom, and even though he's leaving office, we know what his history was in terms of progressive verbiage and what have you, even though he's trying to lean towards the center because he's plotting a 2028 run. I was born at night, not last night. I see exactly what the hell he's doing. We got a cat in Minnesota that's considered to be progressive, and apparently he's making some noise as well. I think that when you have that going on the left, Trump doesn't have to worry about anybody on the right because they'll never go in a different direction. To that you say what?
Well, that's interesting you bring that up because I'm on record as saying that, people may rebel against MAGA, right? And we pretty much kind of knew Donald Trump would fumble the ball in some way, shape, or form. But we know that Democrats don't have the proper team on the field to recover the fumble. So just because they will rebel against MAGA doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go, towards Democrats. And that's why I feel like traditional conservatives have the opportunity to take their party back and present that, traditional conservative way of doing things to America. And it'll be a large majority of people who feel like, that's more stable than what's going on with MAGA. That's more stable than what's currently going on with the Democratic Party. I think I'm going to stay right here because they're going to be the ones that look like, they're sort of in the center. I feel like even, the progressive left, looks like they're in the center right now. Because when you talk about somebody like Mamdani, the reason he's resonating is because he's using one word, Stephen A., affordability. He's simply going out here and saying, New York is too expensive to live in. And guess what? People all over the country feel like that about wherever they are if you're not in a certain tax bracket. They feel like the country is just, too expensive. Affordability. Anybody who talks that language is going to resonate with people. That's why Trump resonated last election. He was talking, he literally said, I won the election off one word, groceries. The groceries were too damn high. That's it.
Listen, affordability, but your other word, safety. Those are the two primary things because you can afford stuff, but if you don't feel safe in the streets, you ain't gonna go out and spend. And if you ain't going out and spending, you ain't fueling the economy, and you're gonna be counterproductive to everything that they're trying to establish. And in the case of Mamdani, I think the one thing that's working for him is that he comes from a well-off family, if my research is correct. And so as a result of that, when you got a president that's supposedly a billionaire, we know he's a billionaire now, but was supposedly a billionaire coming into office, okay? And America didn't mind that. They're certainly not going to hold it against somebody that lived or had an affluent life available to him before capturing office. So I get you on that part. But I also agree with you about this. I'm a Wes Moore fan. I'm a Josh Shapiro fan. But I'm also not a thief. I'm not going to steal an idea from Charlamagne Tha God. I loved what you said on Lara Trump's show when you brought up Jon Stewart from Comedy Central. Listen, he's a viable candidate. He knows the issues. He's smart as hell. He's a viable candidate for the job, but you're the perfect person to ask this question to. One of the things that people think jeopardizes stuff for Mamdani is that they don't believe he has spoken out strongly enough against anti-Semitism. On the flip side, whether it's a Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, whether it's a Jon Stewart, obviously we know their association, they're Jewish individuals. Considering what's going on with Israel, in Gaza, etc., how receptive or attractive do you think either of them would be as a presidential candidate for 2028?
I don't think anybody will hold Jon Stewart's identity against him simply because Jon Stewart is a person who speaks truth to power regardless. Right. Jon Stewart can speak to, how atrocious October 7th was. He can speak to, of course, he doesn't want anti-Semitism to happen. He's a Jewish man, but he can also speak to, the inhumane things that are happening to those innocent people in Gaza. It's one thing to go into Gaza and weed out Hamas. It's another, to kill a bunch of innocent, men, women, and children. And I think Jon Stewart has done a fantastic job, speaking out against that. And to that point about Jon Stewart, he has the cultural cachet of 30 plus years of being on Daily Show, being on TV, and he's actually gotten legislation passed before. Yep. Nobody can forget what Jon Stewart did, for the firefighters,
for the veterans.
New York City
9/11, yes.
On 9/11.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's a better messenger, period, than Jon Stewart. I don't even look at it as a party thing. I'm just looking at it as a person who actually cares. And I think Jon Stewart is one of those people. Governor Shapiro, I personally like Governor Shapiro. I think that, it'll be more of a backlash towards him just because he's a politician. I don't think it's about him being Jewish as much as it is him
That's
being
why I asked.
a politician, an elected official. I think for some reason, people look at elected officials, in regards to that issue worse than they would somebody like a Jon Stewart.
Well, that's the Jewish element. What about this when it comes to Wes Moore as an African American who obviously served our country with distinction and what have you before he became the governor of Maryland? Some people believe that the reason why Trump is in office, was ever in office rather to begin with, was because it was white backlash against Obama and his time in the White House. Well, some people will look at Wes Moore and say, you know what, are we going to want that twice? Because they'll think along those lines. I won't. You won't. Yeah. He'd have my vote. But I wonder, do you feel that that would be a factor if indeed he decided to change course and say, I'm not going to just focus on Maryland. I think I should be the president of the United States of America.
Yeah, listen, all of those things factor, Stephen. We can't lie to ourselves. We can't lie to ourselves about Shapiro. We can't lie to ourselves about Wes Moore. This is still America at the end of the day. So there are going to be some people who hold, Wes Moore being black against him. It is going to be some people who hold, Josh Shapiro being Jewish against him. But I think all of us just need to focus on ideas. Like, let's not focus on the individual. Let's not focus on their identity. Let's put their ideas on the table and see if their ideas can help take our country, in a positive direction, in the future.
My issue with you when you say that, Charlamagne, is that the ideas, you're absolutely right. You're not wrong. But we know when it comes election time, campaign time, they pretend to have ideas, but they really resort to denigrating the other side. We know what they do. Ultimately, it's about, oh my God, what's going to happen to you if you vote for that person? What's going to happen for you if you vote for that person? That's what it is. And by the way, I made news. I think you may have seen it, but did it, in case you didn't, I made news when I spoke back at Michelle Obama. She was just talking about sports TV compared to reality TV. I took no offense to that whatsoever. Yeah, it was totally cool. It's no big deal to me. But I took the opportunity to remind her that I was still a bit salty when she was campaigning on behalf of Kamala Harris and was saying a vote for him was a vote against us as women. And I'm saying, well, damn, people vote for the economy. People vote about immigration. People vote about safety in the streets, affordability, like you pointed out to. It's entirely possible that there's a plethora of issues, at least for men, that come before pro-choice or pro-life. That's all I was trying to say. So to act as if to vote against that would have been an indictment against women, I didn't like that.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that there's a lot of nuanced reasons as to why people cast their votes. And, the only thing I would say to what you just said is once that is presented to us, right, when somebody says, well, okay, I know the reasons you may want to vote for this person, but look at what he's going to do with this and how this is going to impact a large swath of a certain demographic. Then we got to make decisions as fathers, as husbands, as brothers. We got to make decisions. I voted for Kamala. Yeah. That's right. So we got to make decisions based on that. But yeah, I just think it's all very nuanced, man. It's a very interesting conversation. What was the question? I forgot the question.
No, it wasn't. No, you answered it. You answered it already because I was talking about I was talking about just what I said in terms of that was my position, and you talked about how you agree with the nuance, but in the same breath, once it's presented to you, you can understand her point. What were your thoughts about Kamala Harris not removing herself from a potential another presidential run, but definitely saying she's not running for the gubernatorial seat in California? I personally believe there's no way in hell she's going to win the presidency in 2028. I don't think that she's going to be the candidate. I think her time, she had a chance at that. It didn't get done, and that's where I'm at with it. What about you?
Kamala's a friend, man.
Yeah.
I've been supporting Kamala for a long time. But I can't sit here and say I disagree with you. I think that she should do whatever it is that she wants to do. But when I heard her say that, the system is broken and she wants to take a step back from the system, her whole career has been the system. I just don't see.
It made no sense.
Her whole career has been the system. I just don't see how now, she's going to take a step back away from the system. But I do think that, her mentality of wanting to go out there and saying, I want to be more of a public servant and actually, be on the ground, meeting people, shaking their hands, looking them in the eyes, talking to them. I think that will have more of an impact than people think. I saw people saying that, she wouldn't make a good surrogate because, she's unpopular, and I'm putting
I
unpopular in
disagree
air
with that.
quotes. Yeah, I mean, she got the second most votes of any Democratic nominee in a presidential election ever. Now, I don't know, what that personally means, especially when the first one was Joe Biden. But if you got that many people who went out there and voted for you, then she clearly has some type of cachet that she probably could use to help other individuals win elections.
Right.
I don't know what happens for her in 2028 as far as the Democratic primary and things like that. Because I think where her biggest opposition will come from, Stephen A?
What? Where?
The Democratic Party.
Yep.
Because
They
you got
don't
so
want
many
her.
people in the Democratic Party who didn't want her when she ran for the 107 days. You think they're
Right.
gonna want her in 2028?
Right. Which is
So
which
her
is
biggest-
which is the latest reason why I don't think she'd have a snowball's chance in hell of winning. I'm not saying that she couldn't be a surrogate, go out there and campaign, give speeches, assist, but she can't be the candidate. And now again, we got to remind her she couldn't make it to Iowa in 2020, and in 2024 she bypassed the primaries. We all know that. Part obviously Joe Biden had everything to do with that because he didn't step away as early as he should have, and we get that part. But in the end, the popularity was a question mark. And just like she went on The View, and she said when Sonny Austin asked her, is there anything that you would do differently? And she said, no, I can't think of any. This was another example when they asked her the other day about her stepping away, and she's like, I want to step back from it. The system is broken. You're a career politician. You've been there practically all your life. You've been an attorney, a state attorney general. You've been a prosecutor. You've been a senator. You've been a vice president. My God, you've been a part of it. And now you're saying it's broken. That means you couldn't do but so much to fix it when you was in it. So how are we going to believe
the system was
that
broken
it's
long
going to do that now? It's long before.
Yeah, the system was broken long before Donald Trump,
That's right.
got into office. But like I said, she can do whatever it is that she wants to do. I'm interested to read her book, 107 Days, because I really want to see if she does distance herself, from Biden in that book. Because whoever is going to lead the party moving forward, I don't care if it's, Kamala Harris or whoever it's going to be, you got to throw that old regime under the bus. We can't sit here and act like we didn't see what we saw the last 4 years with President Biden and how they tried to pee on our head and tell us it was raining by telling us that this guy was a good candidate, even though we all had eyes and all had ears and could see that he was falling apart right before our eyes. If y'all think that, Kamala Harris, got beat in November, I think President Biden would have got his ass handed to him.
No question. I totally agree.
On President Obama, John McCain levels of electoral difference, electoral vote difference. That's what I personally think. So I think, we also don't give Kamala enough credit for revitalizing what I think was a dead campaign. That's just my personal opinion. I think she brought a lot of energy to a dead campaign.
Yeah, because we saw Biden and he looked, and damn near he looked. Listen, one commentator came on the air and said he looked like an old man in a nursing home waiting to be fed his applesauce. That's how he looked. So when Kamala came along, it was a breath of fresh air, no doubt about that. Last couple of questions before I let you go. With all of this being said, I know you, and I've come to know you well enough to know that you wouldn't say what you said to Lara Trump just because of the Epstein files about Trump and the base possibly plotting to reestablish and regain a power that has dissipated since he's come along and essentially taken over the Republican and the GOP, right? What other than the Epstein file do you point to? I know there's a plethora of things you don't like with what we're seeing. Over 300,000 federal jobs, courtesy of Doge, wiped out so many people affected in their employment status and what have you. We get all of that. What I'm asking is, what have you seen specifically that you believe the Republicans will assist in trying to attack him to undermine his prowess and compromise him to some degree so they can regain some stature?
It's those two things. It's the economy and it's Epstein. And even it goes back to the safety aspect. I always say all the time, man, all any American wants is more money in their pocket, and they want to feel safe. And when you go back to what Doge did to the economy earlier this year, getting rid of a lot of different people's, government jobs. When you go down to these red states like where I'm from in South Carolina, and you see people's, SNAP benefits getting cut, and you know that 17 million people in a few years aren't going to have Medicaid. Those are the things people are looking to and saying, yo, you told us immediate change on day one. And I see you deporting all of these people, and the border's getting more secure, but you told us deporting all of these people was going to bring jobs back. You told us that you was going to bring manufacturing back to America. You know what else is going to hurt them, Stephen A? You're talking about bringing manufacturing back to America. You're talking about bringing factories back to America. But AI going to replace all them jobs. So it's like, the people who think that they're going to get jobs in these factories, you not. It's gonna be the artificial intelligence. It's gonna be the robots working in those jobs. So once again, that's gonna be another campaign promise that you did not fulfill. So I think it's just between the economy and Epstein, because Epstein is the thing that made, for whatever reason, made the base finally be like, oh, they lying to us. Forget everything else that has happened that you
Pam
could point
Bondi
to.
came out. Dan Bongino came out.
That's right.
Cash Patel came out.
That's
They
right.
all said, and they didn't say, it's not like they said we're going to get it. They said we have it. We have it.
That's right.
Cash Patel,
That's
before
right.
he was sworn in as director of FBI, he said, oh, it's on the FBI's desk. You know, he had it. Pam Bondi said, I have it on my desk. They
That's
gave
right.
the impression, oh, we got it. Wait until you see it. And then they showed us nothing.
And listen, I was surprised by the reaction of MAGA. I was surprised by the way that people I know who supported Trump reacted to it. It was the first time where they all had a visceral reaction to some negative news about Donald Trump. And so I think it's between those things, the economy and Epstein, I think, and just world stability is going to make the GOP say, hey, the traditional conservatives, we got to use this opportunity to take our party back.
Before I let you get on out of here, on Larry Trump's show, you also said Obama was a generational talent in that position as a politician. That impact that he has, undeniable. You also said, whether we like it or not, that applies to Trump.
Absolutely.
Now, unless he successfully goes about the business, courtesy of Steve Bannon and others, circumventing the 22nd Amendment and running for a third term, this is it for him. This is his run. It's really about trying to preserve win the midterms so the Republicans can maintain control and he can get done whatever it is that he wants to get done. But for all intents and purposes, he's not expected, at least at this moment, to be the candidate for the presidency in 2028. Is there a candidate on the Republican side that you believe can come close to replicating his impact on the GOP?
No, not even a little bit. Like not even close. Like I said, he's a once in a lifetime, 101 political juggernaut. Like, it took years and years of, cultural cachet, being a celebrity, an 80s celebrity at that, then into the 90s and 2000s with Celebrity Apprentice. It took all of that to build, who he currently is. And then that, turned into him running for president in 2016, winning with one of the greatest political movements we've ever seen in MAGA, and then coming back in 2024 and winning again. There is nobody out there who has, on the Republican side, that has that charisma. There's nobody out there who, strikes fear into other elected officials and like he does. So no, and that's why I told Laura last night, don't make the same mistake that Democrats have made, because I'm gonna use a basketball analogy since I'm talking to you, Stephen A. Steph Curry, greatest shooter of all time.
That's right.
Everybody and their mama tried to play like Steph Curry. But
Didn't
guess
work.
what? Y'all ain't Steph Curry. Democrats did that with Barack Obama. Everybody tried to be like Barack Obama. I want to be the guy that can, speak so eloquently and bring this big tent party together and bring all these different groups together. They weren't able to do that. It's going to be the same thing in the Republican Party. Nobody is going to be able to galvanize folks on the Republican side the way that a Donald Trump has, which is all the more reason why I feel like, the GOP is going to move away from MAGA, especially based off what happens in the midterms. If they keep control of everything in the midterms, then, things will probably be different. But if they lose control of everything in the midterms, GOP going in a totally different direction.
Charlamagne, I completely agree with you. If the left don't get crazy again and start focusing on issues that we don't care about. I mean, if you got if you've got socialists or people who make it very, very clear they lean extreme left and they're not trying to be centrist, they're not trying to engage. I don't want to use the word compromise because that's acquiescing and capitulating, and people don't want that. They consider that a weak word, but you've got to show the ability to be able to do business across the aisle so you can get things done. If the left gives you that impression that they're asking people to move to the extreme left, I think that compromises everything you just brought up.
Yeah, but we keep talking about it in terms of Republican versus Democrat. I'm talking about it in terms of authoritarian regime versus democracy. So if you got some common sense conservatives, right, just some common sense conservatives who realize, like, okay, we're not going in this direction. We just going to try to keep things here, just, typical, conservative politics we used to, that's going to look more like common sense than what people could be doing that are too far left are what people could be doing that's too far MAGA. But whoever is just simply talking about affordability and keeping people safe and just bringing some common sense sanity back to this country, that's who people are going to gravitate towards. But to your point, I don't think the Democrats have assembled the team yet for us to even be talking about them. I think the battle is really going to be between MAGA and traditional conservatives.
I got you. Man, before I let you get on out of here, let me just remind everybody, first of all, author of 2 books, Black Privilege and Shook One, both damn good books. Three now.
Get
What's
honest
the
to
third?
God
All
line.
right.
Why small talk sucks.
There we go. Yep. There we go. You got that. You're still a co-host of the podcast, The Brilliant Idiots. What else are you doing, especially with the Black Effect? Talk to me about what you're doing with all of that.
I mean, Black Effect Podcast Network, we got 45 different podcasts. We're partnered with great shows like the 85 South Show and Drink Champs and All the Smoke. We just rolled out the Drink Champs Podcast Network in conjunction with the Black Effect and iHeart. Memphis Bleak Rock Solid is the first show on that. I got my book in print, Black Privilege Publishing with Simon & Schuster. This year we were blessed to put out 2 New York Times bestsellers. One was from the great legendary Don Staley, Uncommon Favor. The other was from a couple of young ladies named Mandy and Wheezy. Decisions podcast is what they host, and they put out a book called No Holds Barred. Both of those books hit the New York Times bestsellers list. So right now we're gearing up for our next release on August 12th, which is Cheryl McKissack Daniels. She has a book coming out called The Black Family Who Built America. If you don't know anything about the McKissack is a construction company. They contributed to the building of Lincoln Financial Field in Philly. They contributed to building the Barclays Center, JFK, a terminal at JFK. Just a lot of different landmarks here in America they've contributed to, and she's telling the story of her being the head of a 7th generation Black-owned construction company in America. So that'll be out August 12th. So we just working, Stephen A. That's it.
Yo, man, I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show on such quick notes. Appreciate you. Breakfast Club, I'm always here for you, brother. Anytime you call, feel free to holler at me.
Thank you, Stephen A. Appreciate you, brother.
One and only Charlamagne Tha God. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark, the Department of Justice, and quite possibly the President of the United States himself. Somebody got to say it, so I'm going to say it. But one thing I will not do is take credit for this. I am looking at the Wall Street Journal. The author of the article is a guy by the name of Sean McLean. Let me read to y'all the opening couple of graphs because I want you to hear the impact of this. This is serious. This is serious. And I could say it with my team here, having the footage and the receipts to back me up. I could be in that I told you so mode. I really, really could. But I ain't going to do that because I'm in a good mood. I'm going to be chill. But I could be saying I told you so. Because let me read this to you. Caitlin Clark has done for the women's NBA what Michael Jordan once did for the NBA. Made it more valuable, watchable, and marketable. Instead of protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Ms. Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache. That approach could turn into a legal liability for the WNBA. Since she joined the league last year, Ms. Clark's impact has been seismic. Merchandise sales soared 601%. Indiana Fever viewership jumped 170%. The team's value tripled. League Pass subscriptions climbed 366%. App engagement rose 613%. And her endorsements topped $11 million. She's the economic engine driving the league forward. Mystics co-owner Sheila Johnson questioned Ms. Clark's 2024 Time Athlete of the Year recognition. Miss Clark shattered fan vote records with 1.29 million all-star votes, yet ranked only 9th among guards on the player ballot. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't stop there. Because before I read you some quotes, I want to also read you why I'm saying this to you. Remember when I brought up the 2024 U.S. Olympic roster, how she was left off of that and how stupid that was for Team USA women's basketball to leave her off? Remember I said that? They said this is where they're going now. Ms. Clark's targeting may reflect a culture of disparate treatment, and the evidence provides reasonable cause for a federal probe into potential civil rights violations. Am I making it up now? Remember I said this months ago. Remember I talked about people being jealous. The Cheryl Swoops of the world and others. Remember I pointed that stuff out? Remember I talked about the rough housing? Remember I talked about all of that? Let me read further. This would mirror the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission investigation into the Erica Hamby's pregnancy discrimination claims against the WNBA and her team. Congress and Labor and Justice Departments would be justified in examining the facts. At Harvard and Columbia, during anti-Semitic protests, institutional leaders played down threats and failed to protect students. Congress and Trump's administration demanded answers. Columbia's recent $221 million settlement for civil rights violations shows the effect of such scrutiny. If the Trump administration can settle with Columbia for a $221 million settlement over what's taking place on the campus, you think you can definitively rule out what kind of noise can be made if the WNBA continues to allow this treatment of Caitlin Clark? You really, really think they're going to be silent? Now, before you go any further, I'm not here saying that the case could be will be won by the government if it got to that point or anything like that. I'm saying they have a case. They have an argument. And do we doubt that at his discretion, at his disposal, if he finds this to be an issue that's politically expedient for him, that Trump won't use this to feed his base? The golden child in her second year in the league, who was top 4 in MVP voting last year, the assist leader last year, a galvanizing talent that has done wonders for the NBA. If she is seen to be physically getting abused on a basketball court in a way that is such a clear and flagrant discrepancy compared to what happens to others, that man is not going to say something? Didn't you just hear Charlamagne Tha God point to Trump using issues to evade other issues? You don't think Caitlin Clark could become an issue of national, potentially international, and definitely federal proportions? You don't think so? Let me tell you what kind of quotes Trump would lean on. Sophie Cunningham told the Wall Street Journal, she's Caitlin Clark's teammate, the Indiana Fever, the star player of the league is not being protected. Rebecca Lobo, analyst, ESPN. What does she say? Every single one of those plays against Caitlin Clark has been a foul. Dick Vitale, winning 1.29 million all-star votes, came in for Caitlin Clark, yet she was ranked 9th among guards on a player ballot. Quote, absolutely pure jealousy that the WNBA players voted Caitlin Clark the 9th best guard. Someday they will realize what she has done for all of the players in the WNBA. Chartered planes, increase in salaries, sold out crowds, improved TV ratings, etc. And they ain't lying. They ain't lying. We're going to go back to what I said. Let me regurgitate my comments. Since she joined the league last year, immediately had charter flights. Merchandise sales soared 601%. Indiana Fever viewership jumped 170%. The team value tripled. League pass subscriptions climbed 366%. App engagement rose 613%. Her endorsements topped 11 million. And oh, by the way, when she was out for the All-Star weekend this year, because she was hurt, by the way, because of the roughhouse tactics all of those folks alluded to, the ratings dropped 36%. They still had over 2 million views, but they had over 3 million last year. It dropped because she wasn't playing. Now, I told y'all, Candace Parker tried to tell y'all, Rebecca Lobo is trying to tell y'all, the goose that lays the golden eggs, the tide that lifts all boats. Do you know what Gino Auriemma said? He said she's being targeted. I don't remember when Michael Jordan came into the league, guys looking to go out and beat him up. Only the Detroit Pistons were looking to beat him up. And then after that, the New York Knicks with Pat Riley and Ewing and Anthony Mason and Xavier McDaniels and Charles Oakley and all of these guys. The John Starks of the world, Derek Harpers of the world eventually, stuff like that. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird knew that Michael Jordan was the future. Commissioner David Stern knew Michael Jordan was the future. The entire league knew this brother was otherworldly. And this is with Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Mark Aguirre, and cats like that in the league. This is with Charles Barkley coming in the league in 85. This is Ewing being there in 84. This is with Jordan being the third pick. 84, I mean, you see all of this stuff going on. This is with Pippen evolving into his own. This is with Karl Malone and John Stockton and these brothers in the league. This is with Akeem Adreem Olajuwon. And Ralph Sampson was in the league. And everybody knew it was Jordan. And what they did, they competed against him. But the roughhouse tactics took place when he went against the Pistons because the championship was on the line. You didn't see all of this stuff in regular season games. And I want to make sure that I'm clear. Some of it, Caitlin Clark brings on herself because she talks, she chirps, she antagonizes. That's how Angel Reese became so famous, because Angel Reese clapped back at her the way she was clapping back at people leading into that national championship loss to LSU a few years back when she was at Iowa. And that's how Angel Reese became famous. So we're not going to sit up here and throw some pity party for Caitlin Clark like she's Miss Innocent when we would be looking to throw everything in the direction of Angel Reese with the vitriol that has been aimed in her direction. We ain't going to do that. But what we will acknowledge is Angel Reese is popular and she's valuable. She ain't Caitlin Clark. She's not that player, and she's not the box office attraction that Caitlin Clark is. That's number one. Number two, because Caitlin Clark is that box office attraction, initially we thought that the league was being jeopardized because if she's not able to play every night, it compromises their numbers, revenue-wise, ratings-wise, attendance-wise, etc. It compromises them. But it gets a bit deeper because, again, the Trump administration has shown it's willing to demand change, proposing federal standards barring men from women's NCAA athletics, issuing sweeping Title VI warnings to more than 60 schools, and launching a Justice Department anti-Semitism task force. Senator Jim Banks' 2024 letter to WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert demanded answers on Ms. Clark's treatment. Congress and the administration should demand answers from WNBA leaders, investigate officiating and internal league communications, hold hearings, and insist on real reforms. This is in a Wall Street Journal. The Labor Department should review the league protocols for workplace safety. If evidence shows discrimination or retaliation, the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division must act. If leaders remain inert, Congress should reconsider the WNBA's special privileges, including its antitrust and broadcast considerations. Checking referees' work with NBA-style last 2-minute reports would be a meaningful first step toward building trust. That was the first salvo. I'm not asking you. This is Stephen A., baby. I'm telling you. It's the first salvo. It's not an accident that this is coming shortly after the WNBA players foolishly wore those shirts, as Candace Parker pointed out, pay us what you owe us, antagonizing the league, with pending CBA negotiations coming. That's what they did. And Candace Parker was like, no, you don't do that when you're trying to get stuff done. You don't do that. But that's what they did. And shortly after that, knowing that the players, because of how the league has grown, because of the collective effort put forth by the players before Caitlin Clark ever arrived, but certainly since she's arrived, the players were making a case of what they deserve and what they earn. And right around the time that happens, now you got the Justice Department and the Trump administration being egged on to pay attention to this issue so it will get addressed. And when you have Senator Jim Banks, a senator, writing a letter to the WNBA commissioner demanding answers on Caitlin Clark's treatment, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it could be politically expedient. Yes, this could be all about feeding the MAGA base. Yes, this could end up being much ado about nothing. But it's not. Because a CBA negotiation is imminent and will be ongoing. And those players that are talking about their value, what's going to be held against you is looking at your value when Caitlin Clark is not playing. And when you see a precipitous drop off, it ain't going to be about y'all. It's going to be about her. Even if it's wrong, even if it's unfair, that's how it's going to go down. And when it goes down like that, that's exactly the kind of ammunition that the president will use to his advantage as he so sees fit. People are speculating what he's doing with Epstein. As Charlemagne said, he went after Beyonce. He goes after, he mentions P. Diddy. He mentions Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama and Barack Obama and now him. Anything to divert attention away from the Epstein files. So says Charlamagne Tha God. Well, in this instance, the latest evasive measure that appears to be on the verge of coming into play is the president using treatment towards this golden goose, a spectacular talent that is one of the preeminent futures, if not the future face of the WNBA, if she isn't considered that already, in Caitlin Clark, who also happens to be white, playing in the Midwest, with evidence of unfair treatment. They tried to use arguments like this when they were talking about DEI. Now they're going to have it for this. You think he won't use it? You think the president won't use this as advantage? I got a better question. You think it won't work? White America still makes up 57% of the population. Caitlin Clark chirps she goes off all the time. I don't mean chirping in a negative way. I'm just talking about athletes talking smack to one another. I ain't hating on it. I love it, actually. It's no big deal. But she does it, no big deal. Barely goes unnoticed. But 17 flagrant fouls have been called against people for beating up on Caitlin Clark. That's practically double what's happened for any other player in the league. They have evidence to say she's being treated unfairly. Even though I think it's just basketball and I think allow them to be competitive and they prefer for competitive juices to flow. I'm not talking about what I feel. I'm talking about the argument that this administration and this Department of Justice can make. You already saw the senator sent the letter. You think that's an accident? More's coming, y'all. Caitlin Clark gonna make national news. Caitlin Clark is going to be politicized. It's coming. I can smell it. And you see how big my nose is. I can smell it. They politicized Colin Kaepernick over kneeling for the national anthem when he never interfered with anything from kickoff to the final buzzer, final gun sounding. Never interfered with anything. Just took a knee during the national anthem. Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, was sitting on water coolers, eating a banana during the national anthem. They didn't say anything. But Trump wants to politicize Colin Kaepernick years ago. And that was because he had something to go against. He had something against the NFL owners who wouldn't let him become owner of the Buffalo Bills back in 2014. This, a young, star, white young lady, getting beat up on a basketball court in their eyes. They're going to try to make that more profound than Kaepernick. WNBA, you've been forewarned. You got to address this. Kill this noise now. Make sure you do what you got to do. You know, last 2-minute reports from the referees. Emulate that from the NBA and institute that immediately. And start ejecting people if their behavior is too excessive. Against everybody, not just Caitlin Clark. Have a consistent policy. Don't make them find evidence that this inconsistency that's disfavorable to Caitlin Clark. Oh, there will be hell to pay. Based on this story right here, it's the first salvo. It's not an accident that this was put out now. The timing couldn't be more perfect for Trump and the Justice Department. It's not an accident that's coming out shortly after they wore those shirts. And while a CBA negotiation is pending. It's not an accident. My last words. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it ain't a damn mongoose. Open your eyes, y'all. Open your eyes. That's it for this special edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show. Thanks again to Charlamagne Tha God for jumping on short notice to join me to talk about President Trump going right at him. Appreciated his conversation with me. Appreciate y'all watching and listening to the show. I'll see y'all in a few days. Until then, peace and love, everybody.